Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. The Trump administration is laying out its plans for ramping up enforcement of illegal immigration. Memos released Tuesday by the Department of Homeland Security say the agency is changing the way it prioritizes people for deportation. Few people will be exempt from enforcement. And when people who've entered the country illegally are detained in the Midwest, some of them fly out of Indiana for deportation. Barbara Brosier brings us the story from the northern part of the state where every week families say their goodbyes not knowing when they'll see each other again.
It's just before 7 in the morning in this noisy, industrial Chicagoland neighborhood. People are slowly filing onto the sidewalk in front of a brown brick building that's surrounded by fencing and barbed wire.
Every Friday since December 2006, we've been holding a prayer vigil.
The unmarked building that serves as the backdrop for the vigil is a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention center. The immigrants inside are transported here after they're taken into custody for being in the country illegally. Every Friday for the past 10 years, members of the Interfaith Committee for Detained Immigrants pray outside as families say their goodbyes.
We knew that we had to be here every Friday because we realized what our country was doing to our immigrant sisters and brothers, and we saw the families being ripped apart.
This marks the 11th year for the weekly vigils. And it's clear from Berg's message today, the mood here has shifted since the election of President Donald Trump.
Today marks the fourth anniversary, the fourth week rather, of our new president in office. A period that has resulted in a lot of tumult as he's issued a series of executive orders that have caused great fear and hardship and suffering to our immigrant brothers and sisters.
Department of Homeland Security memos released this week say few people who entered the country illegally will be exempt from enforcement of federal immigration laws. It will prioritize not only those convicted of crimes, but also those with pending criminal charges, those who immigration officers determine are a risk to public safety or national security, and people who have abused any program related to the receipt of public benefits.
They're anxious. Everybody's anxious, and the people we're visiting in detention centers are anxious. Our volunteers and staff were anxious because the way that things were done left everyone reeling and wondering, like, what does this mean? And it seems like it's fear tactics to kind of scare the immigrant community.
Some of the nuns go inside to pray with those being deported. They say there are about 60 immigrants leaving today. Those who are being deported are loaded onto 2 buses that have the windows blacked out, unaware of where they are or when they'll see their families again.
This is the end, and every Friday is hard.
The buses bring the immigrants here to the Gary Chicago Airport, where a charter flight takes them south, then they're processed for deportation. Federal immigration officials didn't respond to our request for an interview about how many immigrants are flown out of this airport for deportation and how often. ICE says on its website it conducted more removals during the 2016 fiscal year than in 2015. We know it happens at least once a week here in Gary. Buses bring people to the airport in shackles, where they're searched before boarding the plane.
Definitely the immigration system is completely broken. For many people, there is no legal path to come here.
So every Friday, the group will continue to gather outside the detention center where the deportation process begins, hoping their words will inspire action.
Oh, deep in my heart. Raise your hands high. I do believe we shall overcome this year.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Barbara Brosier.
We don't know which city in Mexico the deportees were headed to. In some cases, it can be thousands of miles from their old home in Mexico. They often don't have anything with them and have to figure out how to get an ID, how to find a place to stay, and some way to earn a living. Mexico's president has pledged $50 million to help people who are facing deportation, and the government has also created a hotline for Mexicans living in the U.S. to call with questions if they're worried about being deported. One of the things that is different about a lot of the Mexicans living in the U.S. compared to other populations in the U.S. illegally is that they've been here for many years and have families here. Illegal immigration from Mexico to the U.S. has been about net zero for years now.